so happy that my colleague asked me from marketing to do a keynote today because, I was really looking for an event because we all know the pandemic might change again. And when she asked me, I was really sitting back and thinking a little bit, what has brought us today here where we are with regards to container technologies? And while I was looking at this, I found myself, there is some kind of repeating human pattern in here that I guess every one of us has seen in the one way or another. So let's take a quick journey in a few minutes to look into the last 150 years. But I would like to begin with a numbers game over here. So as you all know, we trained this morning. Use your app and give me an idea of what you think those three numbers could stand about and what they might have in common. I'll give you a few seconds and hopefully we can see some answers. That would be great. Okay. That looks like double digits, 42. Yeah, I like that one, 42, absolutely. 2 digits, great. Any further volunteers for great answers here? Absolutely, great. So, what I try to do is today to take a little different angle to our technology. And as I said, I want to look a little bit back and to find out something that's in common. So I first took the topic of electricity, right? That's not an invention, it's kind of a natural phenomena. But IT without electricity, difficult. So where would we start? I decided for going with Edison's bulb. I know that there are incidences or evidence of having bulbs earlier, but this was the first one that was going into mass production. And it is also the time when it starts that power grids have been built up, right? So take this as starting point. And as always, when something happens, there are some more inventions. So gaining more or bringing the adoption of electricity into households, there was a lot of stuff. By the way, this was the time when I learned, when looking up, that AEG was the company that trademarked this called Föhn. No one else is able to call it Föhn, so they have to call it in Germany hairdryer or Haartrockner. But what this is about is there's a lot of stuff. And by the way, there is a fun fact already at this point when talking about electricity. Did you know that the first electric devices were connected to power by a bulb socket? Because the plug was not there in the beginning, right? So, but back to the story. It took then several years, adoption growth, so of using electricity in households. And the more it happened, the more was the need for safety precautions, right? So it took a long time until it then got to an earth plug, and it took even longer to get to the residual current device, what we know in Germany as FI-Schutzschalter, right? So, and if you think about it for a moment, what you will find is that is some kind of looking out for anomalous behavior, power consumption behavior. So it's some kind of zero trust in your electric system at home, right? So let's keep it at that and look also at another area, which is, oh, by the way, that's the answer, right? Don't forget about the numbers. It's 71 years, right? Between bulb and residual current device. So let's take another example. We are here in Germany. And I thought, I must have to look up stuff and if there's anything that's also related to IT in the automobile industry, right? So let's take here as starting point the first car developed by Benz, the Model 1 in 1886, right? So that was really the first car. And also there, when you see how the time developed and it was gaining more comfort, more convenient by having pneumatic tires to get an electric starter so you don't have to start the car again and again. Would look interesting if we should do this or have to do this at a server in front, right? But long story short, there were also quite a lot of items that have been invented and that made a good adoption. Also here, fun fact, already in 1900, Ferdinand Porsche was building something as a hybrid car, fueled with gasoline and using the gasoline motor for extending the range of the electric vehicles that were available at that time already. So it's more an electric car renaissance, I would say, today, than being kind of something absolutely new. But then there was a changer in, let's say, how we look at this as also adoption growth. There were more cars available, which was in 1934, when General Motors started first time to do crash tests, right? This is a milestone in that regard, as they started to look at safety for passengers in cars in a more holistic and also programmatic way, right? So, holistic, programmatic thing regarding security. And also here, 48 years, great, second number. So what's the pattern that I tried to find out here? It's very simple. It all starts typically, no matter what technology or what area, it all starts with a vision, right? And then you will find that it's purposing a specific use case by specific features, by specific functions. It might already evolve very early in regards of comfort and convenience, right? And the next step then typically is that it gets extended by features and functions. We all like, as technicians, to talk about features and functions, right? So it gets enhanced and it touches more use cases and more user needs get addressed. And in the end, there's a quite big adoption, right? And then comes the point, and that's what I try to stress here, which is then security comes on the plan, right? I guess everyone of you knows that sometimes a security guy is coming, you can't do that, right? So this is exactly the point, security. So now the question, how does this relate to SUSE? SUSE Ranger we talked about already. So how does this attach to us, right? And here is the number 42. I was listening this morning to the first keynote and looking at the diagram, the timeline, when it was going back to 1991. As you all, in meantime, I guess, recognized, all those numbers are time range games that I play here, right? So what happened very, very early, and what was the first thing that was setting the direction of containers? And I tell you, it's far way beyond than 1991. It's in 1979. Back then, the change root feature was introduced in Unix version 7. And if you look at it, and there are several reports or several comments about this, that this is really the first conceptual root of containers, right? There were several others ones there, like LXC, whatsoever. But that's the point. So now the question is, what happened 42 years back, then later, right, in 2021? That was the point when we acquisitioned Neuvector, a company that provided a full container lifecycle, a full lifecycle container security solution, right? And as we've all seen also in the session before, the keynote before, security is very important. And I really would like to stress that by having you look back a little bit in the history of technology in general. So this is where we came, and for us, coming from the acquisition of Rancher into the SUSE organization, the acquisition to have something regards container security was the logical next step. And I guess someone who entered the 42 in the beginning is with me. Maybe we found by this acquisition at NeuVector, something that's the ultimate answer to container security, just as a side note to the Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy. And that is the only slide that's talking about NeuVector as a product here, promised, right? So when you look at it, for us, it's very important to see that you cover the whole pipeline from the very beginning to the production. Because what we found in our journey and in our customer meetings and discussions is that a lot of customers are in the journey right now getting their containerized workloads into production. And I remember the Gartner slide from this morning, which told you exactly this. So it's really important because at that point in time, very often the security concerns start, right? There is a security officer that's asking you. And what I try to make here as a point is do this very early. Do security very early in your projects because there's nothing more worse than, oh, yeah, we had our start date, we had our deadline and our go live date, and now we have to slip that. That's something you don't want to do. NeuVector is divided more or less in two logical parts here. One is the vulnerability and compliance management. So it's this all the kind of scanning stuff. And it really starts when a developer is writing code, building an image, and uploads this to the registry, right? Already at that point, do security as early as possible. That's absolutely important. And then also to cover all these kind of compliance things for the supply chain. So the upper part is more about the image and what you use in your environment, in your infrastructure. And then there's a second thing, which is where NeuVector really differentiates. We have some issues with the sound. I'm sorry for that. I have to speak louder. So, get another minute? Okay. So, here is really where NeuVector differentiates because it's about the runtime protection. And here's one important thing or differentiation to make in your mind. All the steps above in the upper layer are things that are based on known vulnerabilities. But what happens if there's something that's unknown, which you might also want to prevent? And that's where we come in. The admission control here is more a result, logically, from the upper part. But the other parts, the other three items, are very important, because what we can do with NeuVector is we can look without sidecars or whatsoever, look into the containers, see what's happening there. We see the network traffic, we see the processes, we see the files that are being used. So this is really something where we can ultimately learn what good application behavior looks like, right? And this is the point that's really important because that helps you, because we are even able to block tasks or items or things that are requested to happen so that they don't happen. So we really can support you in preventing zero-day attacks, right? So and this is the point where we really differentiate. Remember the residual current device, zero trust in your home system for electricity. This here is exactly the same thing, just years later, right? So with that, I don't want to go deeper into the details of NeuVector and security and how we look at it from SUSE perspective. I would leave you because we have a specific talk from my colleague Bastian Hallmann later today in stage K1. There are also some other sessions from SUSE. And as you might see here by the topics, security is really a concern to us. And as I said, do security as early as possible, also in new technologies, because it helps you in the end not to postpone go-live dates. With that, thank you very much and have a great time here over at ContainerDays.
Thank you, Torsten. Is my sound on? Sound on? Yes. Thank you so much, Torsten. I also have a card game for you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Where can you be found on the conference if someone has questions?
We are at booth ACE3, so it's just around the corner beside the restaurant.
And you will be there?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Torsten.